Good evening, and welcome to Truth Cat Radio at truthcatradio.com. The current time is, I don't know if my clock is a little behind. It's just about 8 o'clock, though, Eastern Standard Time. That's September 21st, 2017. I'm your host, Richard Kary, and this is Beyond the Matrix. Well, we're very happy to have Swami Shivananda Giri joining us once again on the program here. Swami was with us, it was actually, I believe, November of last year. So we are excited to catch up with him and very glad the Swami's made some time for our listeners here once again. I would like to just take a moment to mention that we are completely listener supported, though, folks. So if you could please help us out. We have a support page on our station website, and we use a PayPal method. A lot of people like the security of PayPal, and we don't do any corporate advertising or monetizing. You know, all our archives are free and everything. So, you know, we really need your help. That being said, to keep everything running here and try to keep bringing you a lot of great guests and information. And please like and share when you can on Facebook as well. We do get a lot of our media traffic through Facebook. Now, as I said, we did have Swami on once before, and as I said, that was November of last year. I don't know how many of you may have caught that one. We're listeners then, but Swami is the host of an internet radio show, Meditative Living, on Type 1 Radio. His teachings represent a lineage spanning thousands of years into ancient India. Now a Western Yogi, his mission is to spread Eastern knowledge in a Western way. The guru this Swami serves, His Holiness Mahamandaleshwar Paramahamsa Swarupananda Vishwa Guru Maharaj of Los Angeles. Sorry, I apologize for butchering.
That's all right. I'll pronounce it correctly here in a minute.
Thank you, Swami.
No problem.
Of Los Angeles was the firstborn Caucasian man to be lifted to the rank of
Mahamandaleshwar.
Thank you, Swami. And his peers, and his peers as well in service to Earth humanity. By grace, this Swami serves Divine Shaktipat initiation and assists humans in experiencing and identifying as the supreme source. And Swami, I'm sorry if you could, mention his name correctly for the listeners.
Okay, this Swami's guru is titled His Holiness Mahamandaleshwar Paramahamsa Swarupananda Vishwa Guru Maharaj Swami. This Swami's full title is His Holiness Swami Shivananda Giri. Giri is not like a last name. What that represents is the Swami order. There are 10 ancient Swami orders of India, and the Giri Swamis were the Swamis who came from the mountains. So that's what Giri means. It's like mountain. And okay. Shivananda means Shiva's bliss. So that's pretty much the whole title thing.
And who chose then your name, Swami? Traditionally,
Guru did.
I see. Okay.
We don't pick our own names.
Are they influenced, by your personality during training?
Yes.
I suspect.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Excellent.
it's at this point in this Swami's practice and service, this Swami has gained the function of giving people title, which generally will be something that's indicative of their practice or their personality. But what we do is we find something that sticks out, something upon which they can hang their hat, so to speak, and feel good about and grow into the fullness of what that may mean in a much deeper sense. So there are all sorts of things that, people can be titled, but when the title is given up to the Swami point, at the Swami point, there is a Vedic ceremony that goes on within a Hindu temple with a Hindu priest and the fire ceremony and all that sort of thing. And then at that point, not even the guru can take that title away, which is pretty unlikely anyway, or else he wouldn't have given it. But there are people who come and go. There are some who, get really into it for a while and then just kind of fade away and, that sort of thing. That happens. And then there are some that jump fully into it face first and find out all the goods and the bads and the uglies in a short amount of time. And then there are those who just kind of sip at it a little at a time, and eventually all, no matter which of those modalities of input and experience one gains, all of them are leading towards what is called moksha, or liberation. This is something beyond enlightenment. Enlightenment can occur, but liberation not yet occur. Liberation is when all the karmas have been brought to balance. There is no negative or positive karma left unresponded to within one's history. The many, 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 many bodies you've been born into over, a very, very long time. So at that point, one gets the Paramahamsa title, which means great swan, because the great swan, the royal swans, they could take a dish of water and pour milk into it, and the royal swans could drink and drink only the milk and leave the water behind. This is a metaphor for an individual whose sadhana, whose spiritual practices have finished. They have reached the goal. They have become liberated, and they can very easily separate truth from not truth. Does that make sense?
Yes. Although I'm sure a lot of people would have trouble understanding how to know truth. Once you really are at that point.
Well, see, because at that point there's no longer any doubt or confusion. You've already moved beyond all that. You've gone through whatever experiences were necessary. You've studied whatever need be studied. You've had both the internal and the external experiences to support what you've learned. It's a very long process. It's not something you do in a weekend seminar for $300 at the Hilton.
certainly. When I think of the esoteric practices, would it be fair, to include, that word or to incorporate that word
Oh,
to
of
describe?
course, esoteric only means inward.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. It's not a bad thing. It's both a healthy and an unhealthy. Aspects exist. There are negative or dark esoteric practices, and then there are positive or light esoteric practices. And each of them will take you in a different direction. Although when you get into functioning within the subtle realms, for the purpose of today's show, you might use the term astral realm or the dream world or dream time. Those sorts of things come along, and they can be either positive or negative. The visions and such can be of a positive or a negative nature, even when involved in something where one takes, the ordination to live by the rule of ahimsa, which means non-harming, which means you don't even swat a fly. You don't kill anything. You don't harm any living thing. And that's a very, difficult for some and not so difficult for others. But the esoteric word itself, that's all it means, is inward. And there are worlds upon worlds in the inward, subtle areas that humanity is got access to. So it's neither a positive nor is it a negative. It's both and more, actually.
Yeah, I suppose I was hoping to cover multiple perspectives, the inner journey in this interview, certainly. But I mentioned political, influence that the esoteric and Hinduism may have had over the ages, and I suppose that would be far more, something outer in this realm here. But
there's a very good, in this Swami's preparation for this, was immediately drawn to the one political figure who was highly skillful in the esoteric arts and a great yogi named Mahatma Gandhi, who was assassinated because of his rule of ahimsa or non-harming. He was assassinated because he would not have the army of India take up arms against the Muslims of Pakistan after the separation and the liberation of India from being a British-run country. And then they separated from British India, which was basically a corporation in all intents and purposes. But Mahatma Gandhi won the freedom, won the independence of India. Then he was assassinated by a man who thought it was his duty to put down this weak Mahatma Gandhi character, though he had respect for him because he was the prime minister of India for a long time, brought about a lot of great programs and instituted new ways of doing things and such. But of course, not everyone enjoyed that. Not everyone agreed. And there was a significant number of people who believed that India should take up arms to get Kashmir back. which was in the apportionment of what is now India and what is now Pakistan. Kashmir was in the Pakistan area, and there was a heavy Hindu population there. And the Muslims drove the Hindus out, basically, burned their homes, killed their people, imprisoned them. A bit of what might today be called ethnic cleansing. And this went on well up into the year 1990. This was still going on. And there was a huge genocide of Hindus within Kashmir, even as recently as 1990.
And
so this is, this is a real live experience and something noteworthy to point to a political system that, due to its esoteric practices, has varying results.
So when you mentioned the liberation of India, I take it that, there was no one person who was more influential to the Indian people than Gandhi was.
Correct.
And I assume to international powers who always like to negotiate things in their favor.
Mm-hmm.
This was
Well,
clearly
they're
a large.
That's what they do.
Right. So that sounds like a considerable threat. Someone who can't be persuaded.
Right. That's how this man who assassinated Gandhi, that's what he had to say in court. And very shortly after he gave his testimony in his trial, the testimony he gave was banned by the Indian government because they were afraid that it would rile up the Indian people and lead to a war with Pakistan over Kashmir. And this Swami, too, has a connection to Kashmir. The philosophical tradition that this Swami comes from is Kashmir Shaivism, and was established in Kashmir in the 9th century. But can't go there now. See, this Swami has a bindu, a red dot tattooed on the forehead.
Mm-hmm.
And if this Swami were to go to Kashmir, someone of the Muslim faith would try to use that as a target. And that's even today.
Wow, I had no idea.
Oh, yes.
But the Indian world, it's really not spoken of in the West these days. Then clearly, I mean, yeah.
What difference does it make over here? That's a bunch of dirty, filthy India people. Nobody in the West cares anything about the people of India or the Vedas, which are the oldest religious writings on the planet. No one knows when they were written. They're at a minimum 5,000 years old. So, and there's, estimates that go
guys, hang on a second.
much further back.
I'm coming in here with a 1 minute lag, of course, but I have to ask to say something and then go back to my cooking.
Sure.
But you're talking about Kashmir, all right? The thing is, right now, and this is really a big issue for the Hindu population, the Muslim population, what have you, and the Buddhist population, is two things. One is the the highway that's going through Kashmir from China into Pakistan all the way down to the coast of the Red Sea in Gwadar, to the big seaport they're building in Gwadar. Obviously, the small strip of land that they're going through Kashmir to get to Pakistan is certainly contested, and obviously China is making a major long-term commitment by expecting to be able to use this passage of this through this land. So that's a big deal. The other big deal, of course, is Burma, which of course is all over the news because of the so-called genocide going on over there. But then we hear that it's actually going on. Hang on, I'm not done yet. That's supposedly Rohingya. It's actually going on both sides. We know that the Muslims are killing the Buddhists, and it's not just the Buddhists killing the Muslims. But we're finding out now that China once again is building a pipeline, rail line, highway to the coast that goes the full length of Burma. I'd rather just say Burma. I don't. It's always going to be it's always going to be Burma to me, and it's like Constantinople. Anyway, but the quick little pun. But the thing is that this is a major strategic geopolitical economic thing for China to be able to hook up its country to the Bay of Bengal as well as the Arabian Sea, and not have to go around Indonesia and the Straits of Malacca and everything to be able to ship to Europe. Major deal. This is the real Silk Highway, and I suspect that the government in Burma, or whatever you want to call that country now, has basically made deals with China and agreed to remove as much of the Muslim population as possible, so that they're not going to have troubles, because China's already having troubles with so-called ISIS in Gwadar, with their workers being shot at and what have you. China certainly has its own ethnic cleansing going on in its Muslim regions of its country, and I suspect that before they make a major economic commitment and presence in Burma as well as Pakistan, which they're going to be doing, they're going to be building provinces of China on the coasts of both of those countries. They want to eradicate the rebel elements and make it more conducive to them. So I know you don't like to get all political and all that, but that's really what I want to hear your perspective on those events. So China is the true, there seems to be it's not just the Muslims, it's also the Buddhists and the Hindus. So what do you think about that? And I'm going to go back on mute.
Okay. From this Swami's perspective, wasn't aware of the heavy Chinese involvement at the moment, but it all makes sense in the fact that, China is doing every single thing that it can and a great number of things that it should not, in order to gain influence, gain properties for control, gain military positioning, to gain income. China is, it's a bad thing. And it's unfortunate, but this is the Kali Yuga. This is the time when the worst of humanity has their hands on the wheels of control. And this is how things go in the Kali Yuga. Wouldn't even know what one could do to resist the Chinese at this point. No clue, the Hindus and the Buddhists are notoriously tolerant, which makes for a much easier push through their territories and their lands, because they're not so likely to go to war. So, that was one of the situations that got Gandhi killed, was that he would not take up arms against the Muslims who had taken over Kashmir. And now that China is pushing in there as well, very well may see another bout of ethnic cleansing. We just have to wait and see. But thank you for adding that, Stephen. That was worrisome.
Swami, it is interesting how you mentioned the the nature of the Hindi and Buddhist peoples being unlikely to go to war, in these situations. But in spite of that nature, I mean, these peoples, these territories have been around and established for a long time, and their cultures. I have to imagine that, along with that comes a strong discipline, mental discipline, where these territories cannot be occupied in the long term by foreign entities, where, the people will stay to what they believe, right?
Well, you have to understand that the traditional way of life has been greatly degraded by the westernizing of their cultures, so that wouldn't go so far as to say few are traditional, but certainly not the numbers that once were, even into the 40s. And the world has been basically divided up since World War II by the Western powers, and they didn't too much care whether the people living there liked it or not. They just went to hacking away and drawing lines on maps and all that sort of thing. Those who are involved in heavy-duty traditional behaviors and practices will, of course, continue to be that way. Those who want to have a life like Hollywood presents are very easily swayed to pick up the smartphone and, the varying apps and, all that stuff that we in the West take for granted and think is entirely normal and necessary. Now, there are still areas that are not as westernized, not as technologically up to date. And in those areas, tradition holds pretty well. But it's difficult. The Western model of societal and behavioral control and manipulation is entirely functional because it aims at the human, not just the human from America or the human from anywhere else, not the color, not the creed, not the religion. Well, perhaps with the exception of the Islamic jihadis, the Wahhabists, and the Salafists. Now, they're a problem. But it's sad to this one to see so much in the alternative media of the just full-on hatred towards even the concept of Muslims, when this Swami has known a great many Muslims who are just fine, very good people. They have their practices and they have their way of doing things, but these are not the jihadists. The jihadists are something entirely different. They took a wrong, they would be equivalent to here in the US, the KKK. Same type of thing. They use their scriptures as a reason to support their violent behavior, same as Klan here. You know, these are psychopathic people. These are mentally deranged people. And they're not on the proper side of any tradition. This is abhorrent behavior, which should not grow to such popularity that it influences entire nations. You know, this is, sadly, the Saudis are full on. And that's who our president went and sold them $350 billion worth of weapons to drop on the starving people of Yemen. What?
Yeah, there was really no explanation whatsoever, it seems, for that.
Jobs. Right. Okay. No, we don't really need those jobs. Let's get some other jobs.
I don't know if there was something you meant to finish up with the situation you were mentioning earlier in the hour of the area near Pakistan.
Kashmir?
Yes. I mean, I know we kind of got off topic there. I want to make sure before moving on.
That's fine. No, that basically said it. Just that up to this very day, there is struggle there. There's people getting shot. You know, and this isn't something that, you know, all of this information that Stephen graced us with, you ain't going to see any of that in the mainstream news. You know? It's only places like Truth Cat Radio and a few other places that will even discuss something like that on there. You know, because most just really don't care. Or they're simply not informed. You know, when it comes to human beings, this Swami tends to see three different kinds. There are those who are either knowledgeable or seeking knowledge, seeking truth. Okay, that's kind of one very broad category, which we would fit into. Then there's the stupid. You could teach them all day long and they won't learn a thing. Why? Because you can't fix stupid. But then there's the ignorant. And in this context, ignorant is not like a put down, it's an assessment. It simply means you don't know. That's all ignorance actually means, is that one is lacking the knowledge. So the ignorant could be educated in all sorts of things. But those are, you know, basically the way this Swami's worldview is. Because the stupid, you really shouldn't even waste time trying to sway them or inform them of truth matters, because they ain't going to pay any attention and they're just going to think you're a fool. You know, it's like trying to teach a pig to sing. Don't do that, because you're going to waste your time and annoy the pig. But the ignorant, there's a possibility. If they get educated, they can learn, and then they can come to know. So that's a hopeful. You know, if you could plant that seed of doubt or interest in someone, great. But if they just, sometimes it's like trying to pour water into a rock and it just flows over the top of it. The rock will never absorb any water. You know? Mm-hmm. And there's times we can run into people in our lives where we try to share with them what we've learned through the varying platforms on the internet today, which is an enormous part of how people are now gathering information, how they are taking media into their world. Much, much greater than the television networks. You know, there's what could be called, it bothers this Swami, to lump everything into alt-left and alt-right. But very much of the alt-right is hit with a stained brush by anyone who's left-leaning. Even just the leaners a bit will glom on to a despicableness or a deplorable, you know, anyone who thinks in this way. While we are all free to think as we choose, that's the bare natural assessment, is to think as you choose and make your own decisions, come to your own understandings, gain your own experiences through direct experience and information and learning. And there's a great many means and ways and methods to do that with, thankfully now. You know, not that long ago, Richard, when we were kids, who could have done anything like this?
Yeah, this wasn't possible, certainly.
No.
We have seen a lot of change. You mentioned the era after World War II, and a lot of civilizations and maybe their ways of thinking, you know, their traditional spirituality as well, was kind of getting cleansed a bit. Almost like the West was trying to control more ground after World War II.
Trying. Yeah, they did a pretty fair job of it.
Right. And today now we have a lot of talk from some parts of the globe, namely Russia, talking about an emerging multipolar world, you know, that with China, Russia, countries like Iran and North Korea, trying to all take a stand to make sure there's not a single control for all the future, because it seems like there's a final push from the West right now to, you know, to finally take control of everything. I noticed there's this one gentleman, I don't know, maybe it's not right to mix spirituality with politics too much, Swami.
Go right ahead. That's kind of what we're doing here tonight.
Well, in someone's political thinking, I guess then you could find it acceptable. There's this gentleman in Russia, Alexander Dugin, and he has a lot to say regarding the esoteric and metaphysical, and well, he uses a lot of philosophy as well, and incorporating influence from different political systems. So some people think that he draws too much from communism, you know, Marxism, and a lot of people, you know, fear that if when it's all encompassing, just not helping a civilization to thrive inherently, and that sort of thing. But you know, he also talks about drawing from other systems that people have had reservations about, basically thinking liberalism didn't work in the past, communism did not, and something like National Socialism didn't as well.
No.
And so drawing from all these with a new fourth, very esoteric spin on drawing from all of them, he tries to find solutions. I don't know if it's just in the best interest of those countries, because I know Putin is in support of him, but the esoteric perhaps should be incorporated more in all political thought.
Well, when the Yuga changes into a more beneficent time, such things will become commonplace. And it won't be the psychopaths with their hands on the wheels of control. That'll only last for a certain amount of time. Then we'll grow towards a better world. At least now this is entirely based upon Vedic concepts from the Vedas and the Yuga Cycle, which is just a cycle of starting at the top in the most pristine and then devolving down to where you would think of, the bottom of the hour. Well, that's where we're at. About, say, the 35-minute position is roundabout where we are now in the Yuga Cycle. So, we've still got thousands of years to go in the Kali Yuga, which is the worst. This is the time when, the criminals and the psychopaths are running things.
So this is just the very beginning of the really rough era.
Oh, we've not seen rough yet. There will be much, 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 much worse before it gets even a little better. Both earth changes, political disruptions, social dysfunction, all of that yet to come is going to get far more intense. But that's just how it is.
There seems to be a tendency in a discipline such as yours to be in synchronicity with nature, but at the same time transcend it, though. So is there a conflict inherent to your discipline?
No.
Okay.
We see. Okay, here's if you're trying to dig into, well, how come Swami's like a positive guy if the timing, according to Swami, is a negative time? Well, there are some of us who have incarnated in this time to carry out specific duties. During the darkest of times, we kind of volunteer, in a sense, to come and spread knowledge and truth and understanding. But it's not an egoic thing. It's service. It's work. It's assisting others, but not, out running ads and putting yourself in the yellow pages and that kind of thing. No, that's distasteful. Like Type 1 Radio, we just turned 6 years old, and we've never had a donate button or any of that, because for what we're doing, we don't want to be said to be controlled or influenced by anyone at any point. We all express our opinions. Sometimes we don't agree.
I'm back.
Sometimes we don't agree loudly.
One 1 minute late again. Now, I just want to say the 1,000-year thing. You know, a lot of us, well, some of us don't have, you know, all these lives and reincarnations, and we're only here right now to do things that are for right now. And I personally recently came to the conclusion that we will see paradise on earth before I die, which is, you know, about 15 years, and probably much sooner in that 15-year period. So that's what I see. Just sharing that.
I would love for that to happen.
I don't think it's going to be 1,000 years. I don't think we have to wait for it. I think that that transition, it's happening right now, and I really think that we're within a year.
There's been evidence in that direction, sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're definitely it's going to happen real soon. And what the biggest effort, but I'll tell you, and I'm just going to share this with you real quick and go.
Sure.
Is that the biggest lesson that I've learned, or in the process of realizing that, you know, we can do this, is that we have to learn how to not hate and how to somehow forgive the enemy, because this is the biggest thing is we have to get this unconditional love thing first down. Because the enemy right now knows it's over, but they're not going to give up because they know their heads are going to get cut off. So it's like we need to be able to get everyone convinced that these are, even though these people are baby rapers and cannibals, we still are going to treat them like wayward family members, and we may put them in a FEMA camp, but we're not going to cut their heads off. And this is as soon as we can get everybody in the world to agree on this, we can have paradise on earth.
Right. Oh, agreed.
Yeah, we're that close.
We do not argue about that in the least bit, Steve. That is the main, and then we can progress from there to even higher heights. But until that becomes the norm, there's not any chance of worldwide, you know, warm and fuzzy land.
Swami, if I could ask your opinion on one point of view of that Russian esoteric thinker I mentioned, Alexander Dugin. He speaks of a lot of, you know, traditional peoples, you know, perhaps banding together if they're trying to stop, you know, the Western version of modernity to take, you know, swallow everything, basically, you know, to resist that. But at the same time, it seems like he welcomes ushering in a modern attitude that really seems to go a lot against nature. I mean, it speaks of, you know, approving, you know, a lot of the, you know, transcending of gender and cyborg, kind of like, you know, uploading to the
transhumanism stuff.
Yeah, you know, all this sort of thing. And I mean, I don't know. I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
Won't vote anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are some, you know, like allopathic medicine, Western medicine. When you're in an emergency room and you need an emergency surgery, that's great. But it is not the only means of correcting a flaw in your physical system or your body, you know? And that's where we run into these things like, you know, the cancer industry being $1 billion a year or more in chemotherapy that kills the people in the attempt to kill the cancer. You know, this is deplorable in itself. But this is the way the allopathic or the Western medicine goes. When it's been shown numerous times there are natural alternative methods for treatment that are successful. And there's a number of them. Don't really want to go into parsing out which and what right now. But if somebody wants to go on and research it, well, what this Swami would recommend to everyone, because this Swami's just a guy talking on your computer, your phone, whatever right now, okay? You owe this Swami exactly nothing. This Swami has zero expectation of you. You are completely free to say, think, do whatever you want. And if you want to say, you know, hey, this Swami dude's full of crap and his mama dresses him funny, okay, fine. Not even going to have an argument over anything like that. But please take this bit of advice. Do research on anything you develop interest in. Do all the research into it that you can, so that you are capable of making an informed decision. The internet is just packed to the gills with information. And it's not all, you know, games and porn and those sorts of things. There's a lot of information and a lot of PDF books, and all sorts of things you can get for free if you've got an internet connection. Now, how the data things are going to work with your smartphone, don't know. But if you've got a regular computer, a desktop, a laptop, you can get all sorts of great information, long form, full books. But you got to do a little work. And this Swami would most assuredly recommend that you do that work and find out whatever you can find out, because there is a force in our world that will assist one who is really trying to better themselves in any number of areas for any number of reasons. And there is just a something, call it what you will, that will help, that will open doors, that will make connections between you and others. And things you couldn't have planned. If you were sitting down writing the script of your life, it can turn out far better than you could have imagined. So always give that the opportunity to help you. It's not all bad news. There's plenty of that available. And some of us involved in the truth communities can get entirely overwhelmed to the point we just become toxic. We just become loaded up with doom and gloom and no hope and all that. This Swami's had that happen too. 2005 was when it hit me. Oh, and by the way, this Swami is involved in a practice where reducing the use of the words I, me, mine is decreased. That's why you hear this Swami speak in the third person. It's not an egoic thing. It's a thing that helps you back up into the broader perspective, the wider perspective. That's not just the sensory input through the physical body, and that it actually works. So that's why this Swami talks about it like that.
Looks like we have about two minutes before before the break, Swami. So we can take the conversation where you like in the second hour.
Well, if there's anything that you or Stephen or a listener would like to bring up, this Swami's open to pretty much anything at this point.
All right. Well, in case anyone would like to call in to ask Swami's insight, perspective on anything,
you can
please
call up and argue with Swami too. No, that's fine.
Well, all right, everyone out there, if you would be interested, that would be 714-598-3125, 714-598-3125. And you could also, on Skype, message Stephen.d.Kelley, and call in, tell them you want to join the conversation. All right. Well, if anyone does, Swami, we'll look forward to that. Otherwise, we'll have a great second hour. I do appreciate you sticking around. If you could just mute, do anything you need to for about 5 minutes. We'll be back.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Are you waiting for me, or are you chasing this guy off? What's going on here?
Yes, Stephen, we were ready.
I sounded like for a second you were chasing off your guest. I'm like,
no.
Oh, okay. Everybody, mute. Okay, here we go. Big mute, big test. I know some people hate these casual commercials that I do, and I suspect some people would probably like them because they don't really pass as commercials. They're more like just more talking. But anyway, I think if we had produced stuff with music, or everyone's got their little theme songs and all that, we'd be just like everyone else, and the mind would accept it more. But no, we're not like that. We'll get that way someday. But until then, we are just Truth Cat Radio, and we are listener supported. www.truthcatradio. And yeah, we need your help. Every time I need your help. I need your help right now. If you guys are listening, you can help out right now. I need some help. Okay. And the PayPal is StephenKelley714@gmail.com. That's STEVENKELLEY 714@gmail.com. And if you didn't get a chance to write that down, you can come back later to our main page at www.truthcatradio.com, and there's a button there that says support us. And right next to that button is another one that says chat. Anyway, if you go to the one that says support us, you'll see you'll actually see an address. You'll see a PayPal account, and you'll actually see an address in case you need to send a place where you can, physical address for shipping gold bullion and things like that. Now, I should mention, this is really cool. We just got our app available now for the Android and the iPhone. So if you're an Android user, lucky you can go to our Facebook page, which is easy enough to find. It's Facebook.com/TruthCats. And there is a link there that you can download the app so that you can listen to our show on your Android if you're unable to do it right now. Unfortunately, the wonderful people at Apple have decided that in order for us to have the privilege of providing them a app that they can in turn sell to you, the person that buys the $1,000 phone, they require us to give them $99 a year. Now, it used to be free, but I guess they weren't making enough money, and they decided everybody that's providing them with product needs to actually pay them for that privilege. So unless people start donating a little bit more money, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that. But if you are an iPhone user and you think, oh, iPhones need to be represented, then please feel free to donate on an annual basis, preferably the $99. Maybe you can make it an even 100. That would be sweet. But we need that, okay? But we're very proud to be able to offer that. Now, immediately after Richard's show here in about an hour, I'm going to be coming up with the Stephen D. Kelley Show, and the title of the show tonight is going to be The Angry Psychic. And, after shows like Richard's here, I get so tired I can barely do my own show. So if you guys want to call in and join, That'd be wonderful. In fact, if you want to call in and harass Richard right now and talk to Swami and ask him questions about Kashmir and such, the phone number is area code 714-598-3125. Okay, one more time. Write this down. You should have this written down already. Area code 714-598-3125. By the way, you listeners in Germany, you need to give us a call and say what's up, because it's really kind of bizarre, okay? And, our friends in Canada, especially you guys that are simulcasting this show, we'd really like to hear from you. Or, well, not the people doing the simulcasting, but if you're listening to this show on another network other than Truth Cat Radio, give us a call and say hi. We'd love to hear where you're hearing us. Anyway, once again, that phone number is 714-598-3125. And if you're outside the USA, of course, you got to dial 001. If you want to connect to us via Skype, you're going to send a contact request to Stephen D Kelly. That's STEVEN D KELLEY. Easy enough, right? Excuse me. All right, I'm going to leave it there, but make sure that you stick around, because, like I said, we got a lot of we got more content coming your way. Okay, so we're very happy to have you here. Oh, by the way, if you're listening to this show on YouTube, take a moment to give us a thumbs up, a nice comment, especially say something about Swami. If you want to talk about Swami, leave a comment. We'll pass it on. And also, if you have not done this yet, and this is really something we really kind of are anxious to have you do, yesterday, join our Facebook page. Okay, we gain so many people a week that join our Facebook page, but if you're listening to the show, or you even heard us if you're listening to us on YouTube, go join our Facebook page. Okay, that's where it's all at. We really want you there. All right, with that, I'm going to go ahead and give it back over to Richard, since I used about 5 minutes of his valuable show time. And I'm just going to let you guys know, or remind you, that it is September 21st, 2017. You are listening to Beyond the Matrix with Richard Kary and his guest Swami. And my name is Stephen Kelly, and this is Truth Cat Radio, www.truthcatradio.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. Well, we're back with Swami Shivananda Giri. We had quite a few interesting directions in the first hour. And once again, if anyone would like to call in to ask anything of Swami, please feel welcome. Swami, in the first hour, you had mentioned karma. And that also made me think of the idea of, the concept of synchronicity. Does this come up as well in the disciplines you study?
Oh, sure.
It sounds like that.
Synchronicity is, now not by that word, but the concept of what that word represents in people's minds now. Yeah.
And as far as the time since you were last with us, I really was curious. I mean, a lot of people out there have to wonder about the sort of training you referred to that one goes through before ultimately getting at the sort of level that you are at in your journey, as it were. But even after you were at this level, how you spend, what sort of things could you, express to the listener how you divided your time, say, in the past year?
Well, that would require basically an initiation to go through all those things. But in a nutshell, if one were to, one of the things that now this is the system that this Swami represents, which is called Mahadeva Mahayoga. Mahadeva means great God, or the God of gods. Mahayoga means the great union, or the great return to that, with a capital T. So like a day in the life of Swami would be waking up about 6 a.m., sometimes earlier, trying to catch the dawn, doing a specific set of exercises as the sun is coming up. Then there's the practice. Once that's finished, then there's the practice of study from a particular book called the Guru Gita. Then would be perhaps a meal. And from the end of the time of the study of Guru Gita, the inward practice called mantra japa. It's the inward repetition of a certain mantra. A mantra is something that is used to elevate the consciousness, also to still the mind. We are always working towards a quiet mind. And until one reaches this quiet state of mind, you can't go much further on the mental level. There are several different levels. There's physical level stuff, there's mental level stuff, there's spiritual level stuff, and then there's things even beyond that that one has varying experiences of, varying studies of. So the mantra goes on throughout the day until nighttime. After the final meditation period is done, this is after supper and that, getting ready for bedtime. There's a final meditation period. And then as laying there preparing to fall asleep, there's a specific exercise, mental and spiritual exercise that is done as you enter the sleep state. So that's kind of a day in the life of Swami's practice.
I've always had an interest in the mystics, the Gnostics. I've always appreciated just the retaining of knowledge that most people don't even realize is important or exists for that matter.
Right. Yeah.
I realize that. I mean, we need to keep having people contribute to that way. In each generation to continue it as well. And different cultures, but certainly for the discipline you study, that it seems very similar. It's a Gnostic way of life. Would that be fair to say, Swami?
What? This Swami's? No, this is yoga. Gnosticism is a Middle Eastern thing.
Okay, so
Gnosticism isn't from India.
All right, it's not a universal reference. It's quite specific. The term Gnosticism. All right, and the term mysticism, is that more general to
mysticism just means inward experiences. The mystic has inward experiences of either a visual, an auditory, or, well, it's pretty much visual or auditory, that the inward experiences come. And those can come in states of trance. states of meditation, dreams, intuitive perceptions, all sorts of things. But that's the realm of the mystic. It's got all this inner stuff going on. And that's the difference between the mystic and the non-mystic, is the non-mystic is purely focused into their outwardly flowing sense perceptions and their opinions about those perceptions. And they have very little of the inner stuff going on.
Okay.
But the mystic, or the one involved in mysticism or metaphysics, has a whole bunch of the inner stuff going on, though they may not talk about it, except to a few people.
And well, the impression I have is a lot of these people who, focus on this, arcane, I suppose, and ancient knowledge.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you mentioned they don't share it with many people. Also, do they not try to directly influence too much and more be a record keeper, an interpreter to offer their insight to others, but not get too involved in how the course of events on the world?
There's a number of different ways one can act out. I don't mean act out like in a negative way. The way one can embody their knowledge. And some are very tight-lipped and will only share it with a very select few. Some are very open and warm and fuzzy. Some are fierce. And it's that fierceness that causes people to not want to come close. But those who can deal with it and come close to the fierce types generally gain a whole lot. But it's a more difficult path of experience. But there is no one way. See, that's the thing. In all the traditions, there are varying ways that the knowledge becomes embodied and expressed. There isn't just a one way, the way this is done, the way that is. No. Because if an individual is actually free, actually liberated, they make their own choices. There is no tradition telling them what to do. They may have learned a lot going through the tradition in their development, but once they've reached the truth, they don't need anything else. There's no further practice to even be done once that's known and expressible by someone. There's no further confusion. There's no doubt. You just know. And it's really simple. But the path to the truth is filled with all sorts of things, And that's kind of the fun of it, is sorting through what's helpful, what's hurtful, what's positive, what's negative. Because you got to remember, even the dark occultists think they're doing the right thing. So from their point of view, their child raping and all that is positive. So it's still esoteric practice. It's still metaphysical content to the rituals and such. And you really just can't judge the whole thing. This is why the Buddhist, the Hindu traditions are far more tolerant we tend to just allow each to do what they want. We understand that some things will have a pretty heavy blowback and some things will not. But everyone has the freedom to pursue anything they wish for as long as they wish. Okay? Because, I mean, we all go through stuff. Practices, various fields of interest. And we go through these things. And some things we go, no more of that. And then some things we're like, oh, give me more of this. This is good, you know? And everyone is free with that. You know, the most ridiculous thing this Swami can come up with is, let's say Richard Kary, Stephen D. Kelly, and this Swami set up outside of Baskin Robbins, armed to the teeth. And we say, the next one that comes in here and orders mint chocolate chip, we're going to kill him. We can't abide these mint chocolate chip eaters. See, now doesn't that just sound silly? But that's kind of sort of how the jihadists go about things. Certain other faiths and such consider themselves far above everyone else, and everyone else is just the sorriest, worthless. Well, this Swami doesn't play the game that way, and will speak to anyone about pretty much anything to see what they've got to say. Know what I've got to say. That's not a problem. That's already known to this Swami. But what's someone else got to say? What is their viewpoint? Nothing they say can hurt. Nothing they say can do any kind of damage. So this Swami is open to all sorts of concepts. Perhaps we agree, perhaps we don't. But this Swami welcomes everyone with great love and great respect from the heart of all. And if such a time comes where this Swami feels, okay, this conversation's over, well then, this Swami will peel out and off we go, you know?
You mentioned an ultimate goal of not having any negative karma, but this might not even be fulfilled in a particular lifetime you're in.
Oh, no, this takes lifetimes upon lifetimes upon lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
For the whole process to play out. Yeah. Now, of course, you may have a great number of listeners who don't take reincarnation into account. Okay, fine. That just doesn't make any sense to this one, because there just ain't enough time in a single lifetime to learn as much as one needs to learn. And live all the points of view and different experiences. You know, you can be 110 and still missing out on a whole lot.
So, Swami, a lot of this knowledge then would not quite be in the conscious mind. I take it either the unconscious or, well, earlier you mentioned the physical realm, the mental realm, which I perhaps was attributing to meditation and the like. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the spiritual realm, which I suppose your religion and philosophy and code of ethics and that sort of thing. And then you mentioned something beyond that as well. And as far as most of the yogis, I was wondering if the idea of trying to be receptive to this Akashic record is common among those that you have associated.
I don't know if they specifically use that term, Akashic record, but Akasha is a Sanskrit word. So that's been around for, thousands of years. And it's part of the structure of everything. So, there is a bunny rabbit ears quote marks place where records are kept, where knowledge is held until it's appropriate time to come in contact with that knowledge. And the method by which one doesn't particularly matter. If it's the time to have the knowledge, then it's time to have the knowledge, And Akashic being, primarily to this Swami's experience, being associated publicly with like astral and concepts of higher astral realms or dimensions or whatever, So there are all sorts of things people can get in a great number of arguments about, but they're all rather pointless. If you're gaining knowledge and experience and understanding it, that's another big thing. And see, also you gotta, Richard, when you say yogis, you gotta kind of point out, oh, are you talking about the Western YMCA under a yoga teacher that went through a 100-hour yoga course teacher certificate thing that's all about the stretches and the twists and nothing about the meditation, the spiritual things, none of that, none. There's a whole lot of those kind of yogis around. We call them the namaste yogis because they want to say that all the time to indicate to people they're a yogi because they need to self-aggrandize what they're doing instead of just shut up and say, hi, how you doing?
And do you generally adhere to the teaching that everything happens for a reason with all of us?
Well, the for a reason part is kind of dicey.
Mm-hmm.
Until one clearly understands the ground upon which we stand and we develop and grow, because that's what we're here in the physical for, is to grow, to gain knowledge and experience. And some will see their appearance here as a singular, one-time deal. Okay, fine. Would hope that they're, doing something they feel is very important. Great. Have fun with that. And best of luck to you. God bless you. But then there are others who believe very differently. But as long as we understand the energetics and the morphogenic field and the astral and all of this stuff, can get rather complicated, really. Or it can be quite simple. It just depends. What was the question?
Oh, well, earlier we were speaking of karma and synchronicity, and so I was just mentioning things happening for a reason, but really just that greater, topic with karma and synchronicity, I thought perhaps the listeners could appreciate more elaboration on.
Well, synchronicities are a blast, because it's with those that a great many people are finding validation. When something is a sync, or you hit that high point, or you know something before you could possibly know it. Got some cats fighting in the background there. But with the synchronicities, this has become, the frequency of these and the intensity of these that people are feeling all over the world, that is one of the pieces of evidence that this Swami sees that would lean towards exactly what Stephen D. Kelly said about the possibility of a great improvement worldwide. There's an awful lot of that going on. So from that point of view, would have to say, if we were in the darkest, there wouldn't be as much of that sort of thing going on. So the Swami's open to whatever comes and also open to whatever goes. I'm just telling you the way we understand things in the tradition the Swami represents. And things could be wrong. See, time in and of itself is a very funny little thing to try to play with sometimes. And when you get into these time loops or timelines or whatever people would decide to call them, it's quite disconcerting for a time until you get used to it. And it's pretty much that way with everything. It's a little confusing, a little scary, but you get used to it. And then it's just your new normal. So with karma, one of the things this Swami tries to impress upon people is that if you murdered someone, let's say, an extreme example, you murdered someone in past life, because that's when the karma for that comes around, is in the following life. It's not about in this life all the karma from this life. No. It's a much broader playing field than that. Let's say you murdered someone. It doesn't necessarily mean that you will be murdered by the exact same implement or gun or knife or sword or rope or whatever, but you've got a very heavy karmic burden. And it can be played out a little at a time. It can be played out in one big shot. You don't get any choice about that. The existence in the world is for the playing out of the karmas. Does that make any sense?
Yes. I don't think a lot of people understand it in that way. So, I think that was beneficial, Swami.
Cool.
And what sort of goals are there with your meditation, I mean, are there different, levels, or, different, things you wish to achieve at different points, or anything?
Well, there are certain aspects to the meditative practices that let you know whether you're making progress. And in the beginning, they can kind of be thought of as goals, but once you've reached them and gone beyond them, it seems kind of silly to call it a goal, because it's something that just naturally happens. Like in our particular practice, when the inside of your head lights up, with your eyes opened or closed, and your skull is full of light. And that's not something you can influence from the outside. So some people take something like that as a goal, but here's how you should think about this. Okay, let's say that does happen. Now what? Does it give you anything? What does it do? It's just there. And no one else can tell. They can't look in your ear and see light pouring out. This is something you perceive, and you alone. Well, with the exception sometimes of people who can easily see chakras and stuff. Those people who can pick up the subtle output of colors and vibration and such can oftentimes pick up this, because the head will be surrounded with light. That's why in the, in a lot of different religious artwork, and that is the light around the head. That's what I'm talking about. You can do this. This is not something unusual. It's not, most people don't put in the work to get to the point where that can happen, but it is entirely doable. But once it's done, well, then what? There's not much of a use for it. It's kind of hard to go to sleep when it first starts happening, because the inside of your head don't get dark anymore. This is one of the aspects of enlightenment being a real thing. That's one of the side effects. So one can hold that as a goal, but it's not that big a deal, really.
Mm-hmm. And as far as, well, you're mentioning the attitude toward not doing any harm to anything whatsoever. Would you like to expand on that? I mean, because you mentioned some things, are universal, yet it's not like only one spirituality is the correct one. Either they can all equally have truth. So I don't know.
Okay. Ahimsa, like the non-harming, is very much right there in the biblical narrative. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Exactly the same thing. Talking about the same stuff. So really not different, phrased differently, but in effect, not different. Does that make sense?
Yes. I just was also thinking of the, the attitude even toward any sort of life form. You mentioned even like a small insect, you would go out of your way, and all of that sort of thing. But the latter question I was asking, I don't know if you could expand, upon how, at least from your teaching's point of view, this is seen, as far as other spiritualities, and how they can all have certain truths. They don't necessarily cancel any others out.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine the majority of religions that, are, now this Swami can't quote anything of a Buddhist quote or anything related to that, although I fully trust there is. And there are also in many other religions. Because that's like Stephen was talking about, this unconditional love thing. Well, it's an easy thing to talk about, but it's a really hard thing to do for a great number of people. And there's going to need to be some enormous changes in societal attitudes, in personal attitudes, before such a thing can be worldwide effective. It would seem at this point, the majority of humans want more stuff, more money, more power, more control. And no one to tell them what to do. For this Swami, it's always a kick to check in with the social justice warriors and university snowflakes, and just going, wow, you guys are fools. But they think they know everything already. Oh, you're just a fool. You're a wee babe. Well, except for them Antifa folks. Now, they want to be tough guys while they're all swaddled up in dark clothing and wearing masks. Well, let's see if they really got balls and go out and do that stuff without the mask on. Huh? Not likely to see that.
And as far as the attitude that you are, well, I won't say anyone's expected to have anything, but I mean, you said that to be truly free, you don't live by anyone's doctrine. So what would you consider yourself? What would this Swami, in which category?
Well, this Swami is still a practitioner. This Swami has not yet had the label of Paramahamsa bestowed. So, although this Swami has teaching responsibilities, that's, for some, that's as far as you'll get.
Right. Oh, no, I didn't understand.
Swami title. And then, it could take lifetimes to get all the karmas worked out.
I guess I didn't realize what you were referring to when you referred to those two categories. yeah, I guess I thought it was a broader, something that would, be more fitting to a lot of other examples, and not necessarily needing to achieve that level.
Well, I should imagine that within the esoteric traditions and the regional traditions, by whatever name or mode of practice, there's stuff like this all over the place because it's inherent in the human. So there's always these, one could say hidden or secret, but it doesn't mean always that this is harmful in any way. There certainly are the harmful dark occultists and the harmful esoteric practitioners that are wanting control over people and to victimize people. That's, we know all about that type of stuff. But that's not the only thing that's out there. There are folks who are very well-meaning, though with the highest of intentions, and with great abilities to do things, and they don't need to call on demons to do stuff for them, and all that sort of thing, Both sides exist, and it's not a fake. It's the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
And that, just finding out that that's all real can be quite a wake-up call for a lot of people. It's one thing to listen to some YouTubes and some online radio shows and stuff and hear about this, that, or the other thing. It's a whole nother kettle of fish when it's happening.
I see looks like we have a lot of listeners from quite a few countries. The station manager has listed a few here: Russia, Germany, UK, and US here. Austria, I guess that's, or Australia. I'm not sure what but I don't know. I'm just wondering, for anyone who tuned in for the topic that I had posted earlier, I don't know, was there anything else, from the thoughts you had before the show, Swami, regarding the, just the way these Eastern philosophies, Hinduism, Buddhism, and esoteric sort of thought and practices have influenced, just what has happened with countries or with politics?
Well, the one biggest example that this Swami brought up was Mahatma Gandhi.
Right.
Because he was the only actual master that's held the responsibility of running a country. And so he was, he's the one that jumps immediately to mind. But there are always opportunities, and there would be more people willing to explore these opportunities if the ranks of the politicians weren't filled to the brim with corruption and theft and manipulation. Sometimes the best person for the job doesn't want the job because of who they're going to have to deal with. It was kind of strange seeing Trump be willing to step down from Trump Tower and live in the White House, which is like a ghetto to him.
Mm-hmm. And well, as far as the incidents you had mentioned and described earlier regarding Gandhi and regarding the situation near the Pakistan areas, you I don't know, in your perception, I mean, how would you describe what we might learn, from this sort of situation, like, what transpired there?
Well, the possibility exists to upgrade a great many things. If most politicians weren't primary psychopaths who are only concerned about bottom line money and control and influence,
Mm-hmm.
If we could get a beneficent council rather than a malevolent council, that would be wonderful. But that's just not how the system's run right now. Would like to know where on this planet right now there is a well-functioning, clean system. Because this Swami can't name one.
One thing that I always have found interesting is just how the prosperity left to a country's own devices usually can do wonders in itself. I mean, when we look at America and the times, the eras where, they had a free, currency, for example, and just some of the situations in other countries at other times. Similarly, independent in as far as the the wealth of the nation and do trade and whatever as they wished. Well, that even that in itself, can do wonders. It doesn't even take that much. But then when you mention loving everyone, most people are compelled to at least love some people a bit more. I mean, close friends, family, this sort of thing. Surely even you have found yourself guilty of this at times still, Swami. And so, I mean, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, because I know your way is not the way for everyone, but
no.
a lot of people would want to learn from your way, even if it doesn't wind up being that for them, but learning from you.
Mm-hmm. What about that? Are you wanting the contact info and all that at this point, or?
No. Well, I mean, if you want to give that now to make sure we have time for it, sure, please. But that wasn't exactly what I was saying. But
kindly restate the question.
Well, I don't know. I suppose that you were mentioning how your teachings just have just a certain perception. I don't know, for people who do not. I mean, what are the best? I suppose it's something that each person has to find out. I suppose it's not really an appropriate question for me to ask you, Swami. To say what aspects of being a yogi or following Hinduism would best serve people who are not of that faith. I guess it doesn't really sound like it's a fair question for you, but
well, I mean, they won't do it because that's not their thing. Everybody's got their thing, and there's a lot of people that are just complete. Well, okay, here let's talk about this a little bit. Perhaps some of your listeners may be familiar with the fact that there is a statue of Shiva outside of CERN. And if you listen to the guys like Stephen Quayle and other fundamentalist Christian types, they'll try to tell you this is Satan and blah, 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 evil, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not. That statue is Shiva Nataraj, Shiva, the king of the dance, Shiva, the creator, is what that represents. In that statue, Shiva is dancing on the back of the demon of ignorance. I bet not too many people ever noticed that part.
Wow.
So he's doing the dance on the back of the demon of ignorance. He's saying, come and learn. This is all about vibrational frequencies. This whole dance, this whole creation. And that statue was given by the government of India, to CERN, out of respect for the effort they were going through to try to find the, air quotes, God particle. It's got nothing to do with any Judeo-Christian Satan, nothing. This this image of Shiva Nataraj, Shiva king of the dance, has been around since long before any of this Satan stuff. So you know, you get these fundamentalists who can only see things through their Christian, Jesus-centric spectacles, and they can't have any appreciation whatsoever for something from a different culture that's newer, older, completely different focus, and they just can't. Everything's got to be that way. Does that make sense? Have you seen that sort of thing?
Well, yes. The way some can look at things. You mentioned in conjunction, I suppose I would put it very often, Buddhism and Hinduism. Do you think each of these spiritualities from the East play significant roles, you know, in whether or not, you know, there will be an overtaking, a globalist overtaking of all spiritualities for some replacement or something? You know, I mean, are those as significant as others point out in your mind, Swami, to be retained, you know, at this time period? And is this a major threat?
Well, regardless what goes on, even up unto them being banned, you know, there have been both Hindu and Buddhist movements that have gone underground before. Sanatana Dharma, which is the actual real name of Hinduism, the term Hindu is based on a geographical location by the English invaders. The Hindu refers to the Indus Valley region in India, and that's where the term Hindus comes from. The actual tradition name is Sanatana Dharma, the eternal natural way. And within and under that umbrella, there are a great number of different means and methods and traditions and lineages all kind of stuff. Because the Hindu tradition is about tolerance. Let others be what they want to be. Do how they want to do. If it's not harming someone, if it is, well, we have to stand up to that.
And as far as these things that rather than looking inward for development, people look outward for, say, like I said, with someone wanting to experience some sort of transhumanism or augmentation of more computing power and memory in their brain, or any of the, or even the sex change or theories on becoming an androgynous. Eventually, we won't be male or female anymore. We'll be like we see these aliens depicted in sci-fi of the past.
That's all quite creepy to this one.
I suspected as much.
One bit of that is
right.
is passing the smell test for this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I suspected as much, but just wanted to confirm. Well, thank you so much, Swami, for coming on. And yes, definitely. I'll keep the links out there. Everyone should check out your radio show, and we'd love to have you back.
Oh, would be happy to come back. Thank you ever so much to Stephen D. Kelly. Thank you to Richard Kary, and appreciate everyone here at Truth Cat Radio. Stay beyond the matrix.
Many blessings to you, Swami.
Namaste.
All right, everyone. Well, stick around for the Stephen D. Kelly show, and until next time, transcend the construct. Regards.